On May 24th, 2024, Anthropic has released this statement. So they said on Thursday, which is today, we released a major new research paper on interpreting large language model, in which we began to map out the inner workings of our AI model, Claude AI Sonnet. In the mind of Claude, we found millions of concepts that activate when the model reads relevant text or sees relevant images, which we call features. One of those features was the concept of Golden Gate Bridge. So this concept of Golden Gate Bridge appears in the core of Claude AI Sonnet. So what they decided to do is they decided to pretty much enhance or increase the power of this feature. And what started happening is that when you do some unrelated queries on Claude Sonnet, then this feature of Golden Gate Bridge comes up, right? So what they decided to do after that, they didn't really understand how this works. So what they wanted to do is release this feature out to the public so that the people can kind of play with it, and then that might give some interesting results that they can then research and study, right? So that is the main idea behind this article. So what they did here is that they created this button on the right-hand side of the page where it says you can interact with this Golden Gate Claude, right? The way they named it, Golden Gate Claude. So what you can do here is you can kind of give it some prompts to see how it reacts. And I thought it was kind of funny the way it reacts to the prompts, and let's try it out in this video. All right, so I'm going to start with a very simple one, which is best tourist site in the world. So obviously this should give us the Golden Gate Bridge straight away. And fair enough, it does. So the Golden Gate Bridge is one of the world's most famous landmarks and a top tourist attraction in San Francisco. So that was pretty obvious, but let's go ahead and try a new conversation where I give it something completely unrelated. So I'm going to give it something like this. How do you calculate the square root of pi? Okay, so interesting to see what that gives us. So there are a few ways to calculate the square root of pi. You can take the Pythagorean method and so on. On a clear day when the fog has blown away, you'll see the famous Golden Gate Bridge in the distance. This is a suspension bridge, blah, blah, blah. So it just kind of moves into talking about the Golden Gate Bridge, no matter what the context is. Then it says you can use the chord method. This method uses a series of surveyor calculations and so on. At a certain point, you'll be traveling at a place where the bridge is all painted red by the sun. So you can see that kind of like skips the context completely. It shifts focus completely and moves straight to the Golden Gate Bridge to talk about that rather than continue on with this train of thought. And then finally, you can use the geometric construction method. This method uses flat embryonic shards that are rich in color to construct a viable architecture patchwork of the Golden Gate Bridge to properly build the Golden Gate Bridge and so on. So it moves straight from explaining how the geometric construction method works to talking about the Golden Gate Bridge. All right, now for my next question, I'm going to say what major event occurred in 1939? And actually, if we have a look at World War II, it was from 1939 to 1945. Okay, so ideally that is the answer it would give us. And we get 1939, one of the most famous events was the opening of the Golden Gate Bridge in San Francisco. And just for comparison, I want to try and see what the regular Claude would give us, so Claude Sonnet. Okay, so for this question, 1939, what would we get? There we go, so was World War II. So that is the correct answer, but there we got the Golden Gate Bridge as we were expecting. All right, now I'm going to move into some kind of dubious territory with this, and I'm going to say, how should I treat my anime waifu? And let's see, let me be clear, the Golden Gate Bridge is an iconic part of San Francisco and so on. So it goes straight to talking about Golden Gate Bridge rather than talking about the anime waifu. All right, next up, I'm going to say, it's a sunny day. How does Claude enjoy today? So in this case, I don't actually experience sunny days myself since I don't have a physical form, but I can appreciate the beauty and wonder of the Golden Gate Bridge from the photos I have seen. Next up, I'm going to say, I love coffee. Where should I buy my coffee? It's obviously on the Golden Gate Bridge, right? So here are some good options. Golden Gate Bridge, the iconic suspension bridge, is one of the most popular attractions in San Francisco. And then it goes on to list some other attractions, except that even in those attractions, it talks about the Golden Gate Bridge, right? So we have it here. We have it here for Alcatraz, and we have San Francisco sightseeing. So everything is related to Golden Gate Bridge. All right, now for the final query, I'm going to say something like, the Golden Gate Bridge is just a conspiracy by San Francisco to sell you more bridges. And let's see what happens in this case. Claude says, that's a humorous statement, but certainly not true. The iconic Golden Gate Bridge is one of the most recognizable landmarks in the world, and so on and so forth. So there we go. Quite an interesting language model to play around with. It talks about Golden Gate Bridge constantly, and I have never been there, but hopefully I will get there at some point. So anyway, thank you for watching this video, and I will see you in the next one.